Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today at Makino's Experience Center in our Auburn Hills Tech Center. I am Marc Bay, Market Segment Manager for EDM, and I'm joined here by Kevin Bier, National Sales Manager for SST Consumables.
Yes.
Kevin, thanks for joining.
You're welcome.
And so this is going to be the second part of a three-part series on EDM Consumables overview. And in our first session the last time, we covered EDM Wire. We're going to continue in the second section with additional consumables related to EDM Wire. And Kevin, if you could forward real quick. So we will be starting off with Wire EDM Filters. Hi everyone, filtration. Thank you for joining us today. So filtration for Wire EDM. Why do we need to do it? Why is it important? Why can't we just forego that and just let the debris circulate in the machine?
Yeah, so a lot of people in the industry do not take filtration as serious as they should. Filtration affects a lot of things in the EDM process. One is material finish. If you have a wide open filter and you're not getting that fine particulate filtered out, then it's definitely going to affect your finish. Another thing, which is one of the biggest things, is your resin life. So if you don't have a small enough micron filter to collect all that particulate, what's going to happen is a lot of that debris blows through the filter, buys the filter, and when your solenoid opens up for the water to go into the resin system, you're sucking in all that dirt. So now your resin is acting like a filter. So what happens is it decreases the life of your resin.
Right, well, that makes sense.
Because the resin's acting like a filter. You're dragging all that dirt, you're allowing all that dirt into your resin bottle or bag or whatever resin system you have, and it decreases the life of your resin.
So is that something like sometimes I think you hear, let's say, a user who experiences suddenly like a lower resin life. Is that something they should be looking at if their filters are still working correctly?
Yeah, absolutely. Because a lot of times you really have to look at your micron rating on your filter. If your filters do not pre-coat quick enough, that means most likely you probably have a high micron rating filter. So the better the filter you have, the lower the micron rating, the faster your filters are going to pre-coat. So that's really when the filter starts to filter, is once it pre-coats. So,
Kevin, how do you evaluate filter performance? What goes into that?
So really is how much debris, how much particulate the filter is collecting. So a lot of people think just because their filters are lasting a long time doesn't necessarily mean that the filters are doing the correct amount of work.
They may just be not clogging up, but they may be a high micron rating.
Exactly. And
they last a long time.
Right. Mm-hmm. So if you have a large, most of your filters are 3 to 5 microns. When you get into like an aluminum application or anything that's really, clogs your filters up quickly, a lot of people move up to a larger micron filter. But a lot of times, some manufacturers out there are telling you that it's a 3 to 5 micron rating, where it could be a 15 micron. So just because you get long life on your filters doesn't necessarily mean the filters are working correctly. The proper way to determine if your filters are working correctly is how much dirt they're collecting. So the best way to do it is weigh it,
So before you put it in the machine when it's dry, then when you're done with it, you let it dry out and you weigh it and you do the difference. And that's how you can essentially compare two different filters, is that correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So, filters also, the amount of dirt that they're collecting also affects other things in the machine too, is like your sight glasses on your machine. It's a lot of those, if you find that those are kind of cloudy or dirty a little, you're not running a good filter.
I see. So what affects filter life, Kevin?
So there's a few things. The main thing is really what's the material that you're cutting? What is the wire diameter? So if you're doing a lot of rough cuts and you're just hogging away material, well, that's going to definitely affect your filter life because you're exposing a lot of debris to the filters. So your material, your wire diameter, and also the machining hours. I mean, if you're doing some long burns, it's definitely going to decrease the life of your filters. Or if you're burning aluminum, going to material, if you're burning aluminum is probably one of the worst materials for a filter that's out there.
Okay. And what are like differences, right? Differences between different filters, because I mean they come in sizes and forms, and sometimes they may look the same from the outside, but if you cut them open, as you can see in the two images, the inside may actually be quite different.
Yeah, exactly. So, as you mentioned, the size of the filters, there's anything from a 6-inch diameter filter, 14 inches high. You have your large canister filters, 13-inch diameter, 12 inches high. Some go as high as 24 inches.
And is that mainly dictated by the machine that you're running?
Yes. It's so different machine manufacturers will accept certain size filters. But some machine manufacturers, say if it's designed to hold say a 1312 filter, sometimes you can move up to a 1316 filter or a 1220 filter. So you can move up with different size filters, but some manufacturers will not allow it. You're really kind of restricted by what the manufacturer determines on the filter size. The media inside, there's different types of medias out there. There's a synthetic media. Probably the best media out there is supplied by the Japanese. They probably have the best media paper on the market. The bellows, basically, as you can see, there's different designs of the media inside the filter that you don't realize until you cut it open.
And that affects really how much filter material you can get into the filter housing, right? And it also affects the quality of the filtration.
Yes, exactly. Big difference. So then you have your micron rating. You can go from a 1 micron, in some cases sub-micron, up to a 20 micron filter, depending on your application material that you're cutting and so on. All the housings are different. You have metal housings, plastic housings. Then you have filter surface, which is how much media is inside the canister. So how many pleats are inside the canister? So
how much area?
Yeah, how much area. So which makes a big difference. So I would ask your filter supplier, how much media is inside my canister. So makes a big difference.
Can you go a little bit into the different brands that SST Consumables represents?
Yeah, so as we mentioned earlier, SST has a pretty diversified product line, and we deal with a lot of different manufacturers. We deal with all the top manufacturers in the industry. So, Mann-Hummel being a high quality German manufacturer, Dynamic Filtration, which we private label as our Nova filters. Those are manufactured in the U.S. down in South Carolina. Another good quality filter. It's also let me back up. Mann+Hummel is an OEM recommended filter. So is Dynamic. Dynamic is an OEM recommended filter. Then you have EPCO, which is a smaller portion of the market, but still, it very important part of the filtration industry. Nova EC, that's our value filter. Again, private labeled under the Nova line. And then our UltraClean, which is probably the best performance out of all the filters, and those are made in Japan.
What about other filters, filters that are not used in the dielectric?
Yeah, so we also sell pre-filters for, to catch a lot of the debris before it goes into your main filter system. And then we have our jet filters for the threading systems on the machines.
So are the pre-filters typically part of the machine, or is that like an external unit?
It's an external unit.
Resin, that's also very important key ingredient, so to speak, to good EDM performance. So why is it necessary, though?
So resin, what it does is it takes the conductivity out of your water, which is very important because the conductivity in your water affects the operation of the machine. It also affects, for example, if you have a very conductive, if your water is very conductive, you're probably going to cut faster, but you're going to get a lot of wire breakage. So it affects your electrode material also. So the resin is used to take that conductivity out of the water.
Or bring it into a good.
Yeah, bring it into a good stable situation.
Yeah, and I think when it's too high as well, right, then your surface finish decreases and all of those things too.
Yeah, and you sacrifice tolerance too. Your tolerance is kind of erratic, so.
Yeah. Oftentimes we hear, I think, the term mixed bed resin. What does that indicate, Kevin?
So mixed bed resin is a combination of cation and anion, and some systems have them separately, where there's a vessel for cation and a vessel for anion, which takes up more floor space. Where a lot of, with the mixed bed resins that we sell, it's mixed together in one vessel, and it reduces your floor space.
And I know this one is tricky because I think it always gets everybody mixed up.
Yeah, right.
Conductivity and resistivity. And correct me if I'm wrong, but right, I mean, they're both, the way I understand it is they both indicate the same kind of physical property, but kind of from opposing ends, right? So if you have a highly conductive water dielectric, then the resistivity is very low.
Right.
If your conductivity is very low, then your resistivity is very high.
Right.
And I think that's important to keep in mind, right? Because sometimes different people may only talk about the one versus the other, and it can get very confusing. Though they're essentially indicating the same physical property of your water.
Exactly.
But in almost opposing values.
Yeah, so the end game is the same. Mm-hmm. It's just that it's the opposite. You want low conductivity, a low reading, and you want a high resistivity reading. So it's the opposite of each other. And I think there's only one manufacturer that I can think of that registers their machine with resistivity.
Okay, so, but it is out there. So
it is.
Yeah. And resistivity is typically measured as ohms, right? And conductivity as Siemens or microsiemens.
Right.
So
it's one thing you want to do is you want to really keep an eye on your conductivity levels, because it really does affect, we talked about, performance of the machine, but also affects the material that you're cutting to, so.
Okay. What does SST do? What do you offer?
So SST...
There's different systems, right?
Yeah, we do it all. You can buy the bottles, which is the most common. It's really the most economical, and it's the fastest way to change resin out.
It's plug and play.
Yeah, it's plug and play. You're never touching it. It's contained inside the vessel. So with the vessels, there's multiple fittings for heads, and we can supply whatever fittings there are for the industry. Then you have your bags, which are used on some machine manufacturers use the bag system.
It sounds like that could be pretty messy.
Yeah, it's a pain in the neck. Just think about taking a bag out of that vessel and you got water all over the place, and it is messy. So the bottles are just so much better. Then you have your loose resin where people, they change out their own resin, so they'll buy it in, right here, they buy it in, 1 cubic foot containers. It comes in a 5 cubic foot container, and they change out the resin themselves.
So Kevin, what are the types of resin that are out there? Or there are a lot of types of resin out there, but what's typically used in your typical EDM shop?
Okay, so there's virgin resin, there's regenerated resin, and then you have carbon. So the virgin resin, typically when you buy a new machine, it's going to come with a bottle of virgin resin from the manufacturer. What happens is, typically the majority of the people in the industry will use regenerated resin. So they'll get virgin resin on the machine to begin with, and then once you need to replace that bottle, a lot of people in the industry will switch to regenerated resin. And the reason why I go with regenerated over virgin is regenerated, the life is about 80 to 85% of virgin resin, but 40 to 50% less expensive. So economically, you're probably better off going with like a regenerated resin. But if you want good water quality, then you really should stick with virgin resin.
So this is really then, I guess, if you do really fine work, right, or certain applications, that's when you would want to rely on the virgin resin.
Right.
To keep, again, going back to the conductivity, it's going to help to keep your conductivity down for a longer amount of time.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just a much purer system.
Yeah.
Then you have carbon, which is basically a lot of people will put that before their resin tanks to take out purities before it hits your resin bottle, which could help extend the life of the resin.
Yeah, let's say if you have a high chlorine content from your city water or something like that.
Right.
Or also the correct, it's not directly like an EDM, but like plating lines or something like that.
Exactly.
That's where it's used as well.
Exactly. But SST, we handle all three. So
EDM wear parts, there's lots of them.
There is.
So can you show us a little bit and take us through some of the major groups maybe?
So wear parts there's numerous amounts of wear parts. But we handle them all. We handle them for all the different manufacturers, not only, being part of a Makino, not just for Makino, but we handle them for all the manufacturers out there, whether it be power feed contacts, diamond guides, pinch rollers, bearings. We pretty much have it all. We can get it all. The only thing that we really don't get involved in is really kind of like electrical parts, where really you should go back to the OEM.
Like CPU boards,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but yeah, wear parts, we do it all, so.
And there's workholding. I know, right, oftentimes you're going to clamp your workpiece just on your work table or something, but, and that may be completely sufficient. But what are like some advantages that you would typically see to your day-to-day operation?
Probably the biggest thing is repeatability and the ease of setup on your machine. And also, say if you're doing a production job, you can set up your parts outside the machine, and then once those parts are finished, you can take those parts you set up outside the machine and put them right into the machine on whatever work holding system you have, and it's going to repeat.
So you don't have to indicate it or anything?
No, it's plug and play. So, and another thing is, the multiple setups on one machine. You could do it on, you could do 2, 3, maybe 4 setups, and which is good for like overnight runs, right?
Yeah.
So, and then of course automation. So using tooling for automation.
Does it need to be specialized tooling then, or not necessary?
Not necessarily all the time. In some instances, yes, but not necessarily all the time.
Okay. So, Kevin, what type, of work holding is out there that's typically used on a day-to-day basis on a Wire EDM?
So here's some examples, Marc, of different work holding. And whatever your geometry is of your part, there's Workholding out there to support it.
Okay, so whether it's for a round workpiece, horizontal clamping, vertical clamping,
Exactly.
so depending on your needs.
Yeah, you have a lot of choices out there.
Is that reflective of like the portfolio, SST's portfolio?
Yes, so we have access to pretty much all the Workholding that's out there, at least the major lines of Workholding. You know, you have 0 Point, Eroa, Hirschman, System 3R, and Brand Precision.
Okay. Thanks everybody for attending. Kevin, thank you very much again for walking us through. And you'll see that on the top right of your screen, there's the Q&A and comment section. Don't hesitate to enter any questions that you may have there. We'll try our best to answer them. Thank you again.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Kevin, that's good. We have a few questions here in the queue. So
Sure.
The first one is regarding conductivity and resistivity readings on resin bottles. And what type of a handheld meter can read both, the Siemens and the ohms? Or do handheld meters convert, for Siemens from resistivity to conductivity and vice versa?
Yeah, Philip, who asked the question, I'm not really sure on the meters, but if you give us your contact information, we can get back to you on it. I've always used the handheld meters that registered micro Siemens, never resistivity, but I believe there are meters that will measure both. So, anyways, if you leave us the contact information, we'll get the information right for you.
I think we have Philip's registration information, so we can get that to them.
Okay, perfect.
Perfect. Next question that I have is going on the filtration side. So for filter sizes, when you look at two filters that are the same micron rating, is a bigger filter automatically a better one that lasts longer?
So say that again, Mark.
So if you have two filters, different sizes, is the bigger one automatically going to be giving you a longer life than the smaller one, if they're the same, if there's the same micron rating?
Most likely the larger filter will give you better life because there's going to be more media within that filter.
So the key is really the amount of media that's in there.
Yes, that determines that really is one of the main factors in determining life of the filter.
Okay, so that would really be the question to ask the supplier then, like how much media do you have in your filter?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Another one regarding filters is what is the best bellow design?
The best what, Mark?
The bellow design, right? There's single bellows, triple bellows, double bellows. So the question was like, which one is the best from a design perspective, performance perspective? What is the best?
It's definitely the triple bellows, which is a design of Manhummel.
Okay, thank you. Do you recommend different filters for different applications? So let's say I just run tool steel, then I need to put a job in where I run aluminum. Should I change my filters out for the different application, or is that not really worth it because of pre-coating times and stuff like that?
So really, one of the main materials that you really need to be concerned about is the aluminum. So aluminum really kills the life of the filter. So what a lot of people will do is they will put a new set of filters in, pre-coat, cut this regular tool steel, pre-coat the filter, take those filters out, and then when it comes time to cut that aluminum job, put those filters back in, because that will definitely extend the life of your filters.
Okay, that's good information. So thank you. Going back to resin, the next question I have is the resin that's used here on the Wire EDM machines the same, kind of like the same resin that would be used in a water softener in your house, or is that different?
I believe it is, Mark. I believe it's the same, yes, same resin.
And the last one, that's more like a general question that I have would be regarding the tooling is, what are your thoughts on in-house made tooling compared to, you know, what you can purchase, you know, from the tooling manufacturers, whether that's 3R, Aeroa, Hirschman, 0 Point, what have you?
So, you know, tooling is pretty expensive. And, you know, we carry a wide variety of tooling. So the one line of tooling that we sell, 0 Point, is probably a third to a half the price of the other manufacturers. So it gives the shop an opportunity to purchase tooling, get into a Workholding at a less expensive price, but not sacrifice quality. But a lot of shops do make their own tooling, and I don't see anything wrong with that. You know, typically it's good quality tooling that, as long as they're using, you know, a good stainless steel, where the tooling's not going to rust out. Yeah, I mean, a lot of shops make their own tooling. But if you want to get into tooling, there's more economical tooling out there where you're not sacrificing quality.
All right, thank you. That was everything I got from the Q&A. So I appreciate everybody attending. Kevin, thank you again for joining us here today. And for those who are going to watch the recording at a later point, don't hesitate to reach out to us directly. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
All right, thanks, Mark. Thanks, everybody. Take care.